Hey, it's Scary Jones, and welcome to another edition of CEO Unplugged. I love doing these. Today, I'm sitting down with Andy Duddleston. He's the CXO and founder of the Little Beet. Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Scary.
First of all, what's a CXO?
Oh, so a CXO. So a CXO is Chief Experience Officer, which is like the person who looks at a customer journey, which is like when a customer starts interacting with a brand, whether it's online or in store, what are the different touch points? So like when they walk into a store, what do they see? How do they know where to go to find out where they're going to order?
Oh, right.
Like how they're going to engage with
So it's you through the eyes of what a customer would experience when they walk into a place, to a store.
Like curating that experience when they're walking through our store or when they're, like on our website or seeing us
right on
the internet, social media, etc.
So tell us a little bit about the Little Beet. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with it. You were not the founder, correct?
Of the
Little Beet?
No, I did start.
You did start it, but now you went from CEO to CXO.
So it's a
tell us the story.
It's a little bit of an interesting story, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible.
That's cool.
And I always tell people that
we got all day here on CEO Unplugged.
Yeah. So here's like the condensed version, and just like wink at me when I need to like stop.
It's all good.
Speed it up. But so I'm from Minnesota. I moved to New York City after I did the Peace Corps, and I lived in West Africa, and it was an amazing experience.
Wow.
And one thing that I learned, I studied abroad in college, and I'm from like a very kind of homogenous community in Minnesota and went to a small liberal arts school in southern Minnesota. What I realized is that I like to get out, meet new people, learn new cultures, learn new languages, and have kind of authentic, rich experiences that I hadn't really had up until I studied abroad in Central America for in my junior year. So that was always really cool for me. I came back and to the States in 2005. I moved to the city because I felt like the city embodied a lot of the aspects of the things that I loved.
Sure.
Around learning about new people, connecting with different people, and just the electricity of the city. Now, 13 years later, I have two kids in a small apartment, so I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of starting to feel New York City,
right?
Grind. But anyway, I went to grad school. I got out of that. I was coming at life and career from the change the world perspective, and so I met up after I finished grad school. I got my MPA, which is like an MBA, but for nonprofits and the public sector. And I met up with a couple guys who, at that time, had a few Five Guys franchises.
The Five Guys burger and fries.
Yep,
right
in the city. They had a small office. I met one of the guys randomly. I think it was like he's found me, or someone in his office of 4 people found me on Craigslist. I met up with a guy. I really liked him. He was in the .com thing. Had a really cool story. He was like a serial entrepreneur who just happened to wind up in the food space. Met with his partner. Really liked him as well, and they took me on as kind of an entrepreneur in residence. So, and they wanted to start a nonprofit in the city as a way to give back in this company that at the time was super young, and they were trying to build. Okay, so I did that. Initially, it was going to be around food insecurity. So a lot of hungry people in the city. How do we address that, right? So I was thinking about that and doing my little research because I was really kind of academically focused at the time.
What did you find in your research?
I found that there's a lot of people and a lot of entities in the city who were doing that, right?
Okay.
What I found was that there weren't a lot of people who were doing addressing this idea of economic mobility. And at that time, I think they had 3 or 4 restaurants, 4 of the Five Guys. About 80 to 100 people who, had they come from my zip code, probably wouldn't be stuck in these ostensibly dead-end jobs in fast food, right? But had they, been cultivated, and had they had a network and access to good schools and kind of not coming through legacies of systemic racism, not to get a little bit too, risque, but wound up there. And had a ton of, there was a bunch of, of those 80 to 100 people, there's a lot that had a ton of potential, I felt. And I worked with them, and I flipped burgers and that for a little while. And so I said, this is what we got to do. We got to start a program or a nonprofit or a company, whatever it is, to help create economic mobility. So how do we get someone who's stuck in kind of turning and burning in fast food jobs? how can we work with those who really want to realize their potential and help be the catalyst for them to get better jobs and move up the chain and within the food industry or outside. And the value proposition was for the business owner, for them to invest in their employees. They're showing that they actually care about their employees, and in turn,
a lot of employers don't show that gratitude.
Yeah.
So it's nice to that these people were.
Yeah, and this
at
was
the time.
Yeah. It was 9 years ago, and the Fight for 15 was. I don't even know if it was being talked about. Economic mobility wasn't really being talked about a lot, and so I was super psyched about this idea, and I felt like it resonated with me. It seemed real, so I did that. And as that was happening, I convinced a bunch of people who are much smarter than me to help run programs and raise a few some grants, so we had a little bit of funding. The founders of the parent company they opened an original concept called Melt Shop. And Melt Shop was, at the time, a grilled cheese concept. They had one on 52nd and Lex. It was like 500 square feet. It was a window, but they were having success. So it was like, okay, cool. Like, we can run restaurants that aren't franchises, and there's more risk, sure, but there's more upside because you're not paying the royalties. As that was happening, super entrepreneurial environment within our office, and we were always kicking around the idea of what could we do in addition to what's happening. So in addition to the nonprofit champion access, what are the other opportunities?
And take the idea of, or the concept of Melt Shop, and bring it into a different type of food space, or the type of.
You got it. Yeah. What other foods? What other?
Where is there a hole in the market?
Right. Or what do we want? What do we want to do?
So that brings us to the boom of what we call the organic farm to table, right? Which some people that are watching this right now might not know what that is. Why don't you explain what farm to table is in the world of restaurants, fast food, and service?
Sure.
That.
So that, I mean, I think this was like 2011, 2012. You were starting to hear a lot about farm to table within, the fine dining community, with Blue Hill and Stone Barns and a bunch.
These
right?
are restaurants in New York City, by the way.
Right. And Alice Waters, obviously out in California. And so people
sure.
were doing this, but it was really becoming kind of a thing. And it hadn't been really, it wasn't something that was intersecting in what we call the fast casual space, which is like elevated, fast food or quick service.
Right. It was more fine dining. It was people that had like thousands of dollars to blow on a meal.
Exactly.
Those were the people.
Yep, exactly. So,
that were doing the, getting the farm to table experience.
Exactly. So we saw an opportunity. We saw a gap in the market. We worked on, at that time, our office was on 20th and 5th. And like when we went out to lunch, there wasn't like a ton of options at that time. Like, you could go to the bodega and get the mixed salad, but like, okay, cool, fine. You go to Energy Kitchen at that time, which is like everything was less than 500 calories. And, all due respect to Energy Kitchen, but it just, we weren't like psyched on the flavors. At that time, Pump Energy Kitchen was converting to Dig In, so they were kind of early. Chopped was getting into the scene, but it wasn't really being done. Right. So Andy and John, the principals, co-CEOs of Orify Brands, had some investor conference in California. They checked out this concept called Lemonade LA, came back, were like crazy about it. They were like, this is the best ever, blah, blah, blah. And I went out, I saw it. It was vegetable driven. They had meats. It was a California brightness. The vibe was really cool. And I was like, this is amazing. They were like, this is amazing. And I said, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring as the sweat equity guy to build this brand.
Wow.
There you go.
And hence the kind of quick service organic farm to table came into view.
Yeah.
Right? Would you call it that?
I would call it like plant inspired.
Vegetable
forward.
So let's just, layman's terms, what do we find on the menu at Little Beet?
Okay, so on the menu at the Little Beet, you have a lot of vegetables, right? But it's not just plain vegetables. Some of them
some people hear the word vegetable and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
But no, you may be in, because.
Yeah, I mean, look, from day one, it was never like, okay, we're going to box ourselves into having, 5 grams of fat or less, or 100 calories or less for each vegetable. It was like,
right,
how can we make vegetables be accessible and taste really good, and be unique and have different flavor combinations with unique ingredients.
Right.
So like, spirulina or puffed millet or amaranth, all this stuff.
Things that are healthy for you.
Things that are generally good for you, but like we also serve at that time, early days, we served steak, which some people don't consider healthy. We have braised pork on our menu right now. So it's not, we never put ourselves in saying we're only going to be healthy. What drives us is making sure that we have quality ingredients that in general are pretty damn healthy, but like they taste really good. And you can create a square meal around everything on our menu. And it's not alienating for someone who's, like not a vegan or not a vegetarian. And there's a lot of stuff for vegans and vegetarians, et cetera, but like it's something that normal people who don't have those dietary restrictions can eat, but it also appeals to the person who's more sensitive about what they put in their mouth.
Not to diss places like Chipotle, but somebody could be like, oh, I get my health, I can get healthy ingredients there, right? Or not really. Why Little Beet as opposed to not just Chipotle? I'm putting them up against other options at lunchtime, for instance.
Yeah. I think so. When I started with these guys in 2009, Chipotle was like one of the places that was in the rotation, right?
Right.
And I would crush those burritos and I would add guacamole and sour cream and cheese, and I would eat that and I would eat it fairly quickly, which is, I've realized eating fast is not like a good thing because
no, it's not.
You tend to overeat and it sort of compromises your ability to digest, if you will.
Yep.
Anyway, so our offering compared to a Chipotle is just far more robust from a nutritional perspective and from a variety perspective of the vegetables that you're putting on your plate.
Right on.
It's not just salsa and like bell peppers and
sure.
onions.
Tell me about advice that you've been given as a CXO and what's the best advice that you've ever gotten in this space?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that. And in my own like personal journey, kind of transitioning from the change your world or change the world space into the change the world space, but more on the for-profit side, because I was able to take the ethos of what drove me to do the Peace Corps and what drove me to start this nonprofit called Champion Access, which is doing the right thing for people. And for me at the Little Beet, and what drives me as CXO is making sure that we are creating a work environment where people come in and if they stay for 2 months, they're leaving in a better position professionally, personally than when they first started with us. So that means creating a workspace where people are respected, people are learning things, and people are being treated well.
It sounds like a really wonderful company to work for, and especially at the Little Beet, which is one of the brands.
Correct. That's the brand that I'm exclusively focused on. So, but yeah,
walk us through an employee experience.
I mean, there's so many different, pieces of when we talk about the customer journey, we can talk about the employee journey as, also, right? And ultimately, like your ability to execute on the customer experience is predicated on your ability to have a strong foundation of team members who are actually bought into your brand, right?
Sure.
So that's what it's all about, is really creating that. And how do you create that? Like, there's no magic formula other than you listen to your team members and you understand what are the challenges and complexities that impact their lives, and how can you overlay their experience with, or the Little Beet experiences with that, and make it work for them. How can you make the operation more simplified so that they're not like breaking their back every time they're walking in our doors? How can you make the schedule work for them? How can you make sure that they're being developed and being
It sounds
coached?
like you listen to their hardships and then you respond accordingly. And what about like in the world of benefits? Like, how do you guys have what you guys offer differently and better than maybe other companies that are out there that are for people that are on the same playing field in the same space?
Yeah. So from a benefits perspective, I think our main benefit right now is our ability to connect and support on a human level with our team members. So I'm not going to say that like we're not yet doing, what Starbucks did in the early 2000s of saying, okay, anyone who works 20 hours is going to get health insurance, right? We're not at a place yet where we're able to do that, or we've chosen to do that. And we have some different things. We do a 401k match, but really,
Yeah. What I was going to say was, let me clarify. Are there some offerings with your company that set you apart from others in the space right now?
I don't know that there's offerings that you can point to on paper. I can just say that if you talk to our employees, if we were to do like an A/B test between the Little Beet employees and employees of another fast casual brand, I think what you'd see with the turnover or retention rather of our team members and just overall morale is that people are feeling pretty good. That said, it's a work in progress, and we're always trying to get better, especially now as we're kind of in growth mode. So
yeah. Speaking of that, can you talk about growth mode and where you guys are headed for the future?
Yeah. So we're 5.5 years old. A little bit, no, like literally almost 5.5 years old. We opened January 2nd of 2014 on 50th and 7th. And so my role was overseeing the brand and wearing every single hat. And for the first 12 months of when we opened was on the salmon grill doing the salmon. I gave myself the nickname Salmon King, which is kind of silly, but like whatever, the team got a kick out of it, and maybe I got more of a kick out of it, but
yeah.
It was awesome because I was in it with them. And then we've started, as we've grown, we've brought on people who are they're experts in culinary, experts in training, and experts in marketing, and we brought in a CEO from Starbucks, a seasoned executive, Becky Mulligan, to oversee the brand and to lead the brand into the next stage of growth, which we have some very aggressive and we have some very aspirational growth plans for the next 2 to 3 years. So it's super exciting, and she shares the ethos that we have and that we built from day one at the Little Beet, and I think is going to be a huge part in helping us grow successfully without compromising that. That's the whole goal.
No, that was very well put. Being the CXO, someone who is the eyes and ears of a typical consumer, what advice do you have for other CEOs of other fast casuals that they can improve on? Because from living the life of the daily consumer, what are their needs and what's not being met. So what's some advice do you have for others?
Yeah. So I think.
Was that a curveball?
No, not at all. Cool? Not at all. I want to be thoughtful because I think there's a lot of things that are affecting all of us, whether it's minimum wage or whether it's the disruption of delivery in the space. Transitioning, from ordering in store to ordering via an app for pickup. But for me, all CEOs know about that in our space, is my guess. I think that the biggest thing that, I don't know if it's advice, but just something as a CXO that I'm super hyper focused on is our people, and not saying, okay, we're going to, invent robots to eliminate our people. No, we want to make sure our operation is simplified without compromising our quality or our ingredients, but in a way that we can then free up to some extent our team members to be able to elevate them in different ways, specifically
and motivate
hospitality
and incentivize them too to want to be better employees. So what's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Ooh, okay. So I've gotten a lot of advice, and some of it I haven't listened to or haven't processed for whatever reason, but there's a few things that I'm trying to make central to who I am and the ethos of me as a human being on this planet is, one, don't tell people what they want to hear. Be real and be honest, and maintain my own integrity about some of the things that I've talked to you about, which is my whole thing is a strong business is predicated on us making sure that we're taking care of our team members. If we're doing that in a way and making sure that we're maintaining the business will succeed, and we can differentiate and become a fantastic, if not the best brand in the food space. That's the goal. And then, this is a funny one. I was listening to, I don't know if it was a podcast or a book. Oh no, I think it was a book, and I can't remember the name. But basically, it was like, don't measure your self-work by the number of tasks on a task list that you check off. So maintain that sense of stepping back and being real and thinking about things, and not just living your life and your career on kind of the hamster wheel.
That's great advice.
Not so simple in New York City. But
It's difficult to get.
I'm working on it.
And it is difficult to get out of that mindset.
Yeah.
You have to, some outside force has to help you get off that wheel.
It's a work in progress for me all the time.
The website, Little Beet.
Yeah.
What is it? LittleBeet.com?
The Little
The
Beet.
Little Beet.
We're
and
working
Beet.
on just getting Little Beet, but it's
Right.
it's the Little Beet.
The Little Beet, and Beet is spelled BEET.com. You see the graphic, I'm sure. And that's where you can get all the locations for Little Beet, correct?
Yep.
And some future location you want to throw out there? I mean, you guys are basically in Manhattan.
Yeah, we're in Manhattan. We have a couple projects outside of Manhattan. We just opened in Aventura, which is north of Miami.
That's South Florida, which we have a lot of people that watch and listen from there.
Cool. So, yeah, and we have a couple spots in Miami. One's in Coconut Grove that we're working on, super psyched about. And then a couple, actually one in Fairfield County. In
Connecticut?
In one of the...
That's okay. Does that mean your time is up here?
That means I got to get back to work.
That means another store is about to open.
3 weeks, Newport Center in Jersey City's opening. But
that's where I live.
Really?
That's my hometown mall.
All
yes.
Right. We're not in the food court. We're on like the little walkway from the office building.
I am so there. I know exactly where that is.
All right.
I know that space. Andy Duddleston. It's been great having you here, the CXO from Little Beet. Thank you for joining us today on CEO Unplugged. Pleasure. All right.